for whatever reason, this show, my heart is racing. We were sitting there, I'm like, I need to go stress pee. Like, what's happening? Hello and welcome to Just Streaming, a show about Twitch life, Twitch advice, Twitch experiences and stuff like that. My name is Serge, joined, great start, by the wonderful Fuji on the side. And we should start off with a quick establishment of who we are, why we're not necessarily qualified to talk about this, but what is the basis of our experiences. I've been a partner for 3+ years. In addition to my personal stuff, I've been working with an online content creation company called Loading Ready Run for close to 8 years now, doing Twitch and YouTube content, including very large events like the pre-release, which is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. Also on the Desert Bus for Host organizing committee, been doing that for about, also 7 years. Fuji, I'm old. And throughout all of this, much like in any career, you develop a network of professional colleagues, most of whom for me now are other streamers and creators who I get to talk to fairly routinely about this lifestyle. Fuji, tell us about you.
Yeah, I am Fuji, or Chris Gamble. I've worked at Twitch for 8 years now, in a variety of teams and positions at the company. I've been in the broader streaming industry for over 12 years, a large portion of that working at Desert Bus for Hope. And over the past decade, I've had the great fortune to befriend hundreds of streamers and help mentor dozens of them, giving advice, helping them understand what to do or how to approach things. Channels of all different sizes, single viewer, tens of viewers, hundreds of viewers. I've gotten to know people throughout the entire range. So I'm hopeful I can take some of those experiences and learnings and discussions that I've had over the years and pass it forward and help y'all better understand how to approach things and think about things in a sustainable way.
One of the catalysts that got us to start this show was actually a lot of conversations I've seen you having on Twitter. In your conversations with newer streamers, these same questions kept coming up over and over. The same problems kept coming up over and over. And there's this sort of frustration that why aren't there resources that exist that can answer these questions? Because you can find, here's 1,000 different ways to program OBS. Here's a way to fix the white balance on your camera. Here's a go-to for your lighting. But simple questions on the lifestyle of being a streamer, or why I'm streaming, what my branding should be, how do I monetize this? Can I ever turn my camera off? Should I just do nothing but 24-hour marathons? Right? It's weird. And when you're here long enough, you develop this sort of, I hate the word common sense, because common sense is nothing but common, right? It's where do you get these learned experiences? Where do you get these shared experiences? And honestly, the conversations I've had with you about the struggles of these newer streamers was a big catalyst for making this show happen.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of information if you know where to look around, like, how do I grow my channel and how do I do various technical bits? But there's not a lot of great resources around the mentality of being a streamer and how to be a streamer in a way that you can continue streaming for years and to do it in a way that isn't harmful to you and that you can keep going through it. And to me, those discussions, in my experience, have only been in-person conversations at networking events and things like that, that if you're just starting to get streaming, you won't have had access to those. And so my hope is that we can kind of bring some of that to light here and help share that knowledge.
Some of the only topics I have now when I hang out with my other streamer friends is streaming. And it's like, we're hungry for these conversations. Despite this perception of this being very social, is very isolating. It's one way. There is chat and it comes back a bit, but you're often just projecting a thought to the audience. One of the longest and probably best conversations I've had about streaming mentality was a buddy and I went on a ski trip. And it was just him and I alone in a car and then on a chairlift together for the entire day. And it was like, what do I do for my emotes? Right? He just never had, he had no idea, was so lost. I'm like, whatever you want. Does that work? Yes. Why? And then develop that. So that's why we want to do this podcast, is we find there's a lack of resources to overcome what seems like these very simple questions. What we're not, though, is it's important to draw the box of what we want to offer. We're not top 10 ways to monetize your channel. Because honestly, I think if we'd figured that out, we'd be retired now or something, right? We'd be a lot richer than we are. The other thing we don't want to position ourselves as is tech support. Because I believe of all of the resources that exist online at the moment, that's probably the easiest one to find elsewhere, is YouTube tutorials. Actually, probably just YouTube tutorials.
Yeah, there's like OBS forums and things like that as well. But if you're wondering, how do I do a specific thing, you've already progressed far enough that you don't need our help. We're more about helping you figure out what things should you be considering, and then you can go Google those specific things to figure out how to actually implement it.
So that brings us nicely to today's topic. Why start streaming? What is your motivation when you are streaming? The takeaway, the number one thing we want people to take away from this conversation, from this entire episode, is know what you want to get out of streaming and keep that in mind with every decision that you make. And here's a great example. So I have some Victoria business friends that run a tea company called Jagged Silk. If you've been following Desert Bus for Hope, they are an extremely high-end and well-known Victoria-based specialty tea company. They do matcha, they do tea stuff. They've sponsored Desert Bus for Hope. They've come onto the show a couple times and done like matcha and tea tasting celebrations and presentations, and they're rad. When COVID hit, 90 to 95% of their business vanished. Just poof, gone, because they were primarily dealing in business-to-business, large-scale tea of like, we'll supply it, we'll send it to another cafe, instead of, serving individual customers. And I was talking to the owner, and he was just totally lost as to what to do. And it was just like, well, Serge, this streaming thing works out well for you. Maybe I can give this a try. And I was like, why? It's like, well, I miss the in-person conversations with my clients. I miss being able to talk about tea. I have a web store. I want to try and generate traffic somewhere so I can direct people to it. And ended up creating a live YouTube show where he reaches out to guests, sometimes other cafe owners, sometimes just friends, sends them tea. They brew tea together. They talk through it. They just talk about life and a lot of the experiences they'd have in the cafe. And then they get to sort of shout out their stores afterwards. And they ended up taking that all the way to hosting the Victoria Tea Festival as an online marathon tea event. And that was just a really interesting approach, because I've never heard of a business wanting to get into streaming. But what were their goals? It's just like to recover the things that they lost in their customer experience and to try and recoup some of their business costs as well. And I think that's a great way to identify the goal. And again, it informed a lot of decisions they were making of the presentation they want. Okay, I know I need to have a guest. I need to be able to show the tea being brewed. There needs to be an allowance for silence. I need to be able to throw it in my web store, and that all helped there.
For many streamers, why are you streaming is a blend of many different things that you care about at different amounts or levels. Like, it's not, I don't think many streamers go into it and they're like, oh, I only care about the money. If I only cared about money, you'd probably find a more stable, better paying job. But it's often a part of it, right? Like, obviously for Jagged, like, they wanted that social experience, but that wasn't the only thing they wanted. And it's important to know everything you're going in for so that you can make sure that you're able to structure your stream around what you want. It could be money. It could be the socialization. It could just be that you're really enjoying playing a specific game and you just want to show people that and share that experience with people. There's a lot of different reasons to stream, and all of them are valid. There's no better reason to stream. You're not. You shouldn't try to like compare yourself of like, oh, if you're in it for the money, you're like not streaming for the
You're
right
not a
reasons
real
or
artist,
anything.
Fuji. Way to sell out. By the way,
Yeah.
I would sell out in a heartbeat. My prices are very affordable, right?
Yeah, it's I mean it's the same criticism that many other creative professions like musicians and whatnot get. People try to take a swing at you for not doing it for the right reason. And I'm here to say no, it's fine whatever your reason is, just know what your reason is.
So my personal story for this was, well, first off, I had friends who streamed, and sometimes they just needed an extra for a video. So that's kind of how I got known, was just helping out pals. They like, hold a boom, hold this pizza box, deliver this one line, try it again, try it. Okay, we can use that one now. But the launch of my personal channel came when I was working in the tech industry. I was getting burnt out, and I don't know why this happens, and this is not unique to just me, but you're like, I'm burning out. I should take on a new creative project. That'll fix everything. I'll just work more. And so I started streaming 2 to 3 nights a week on top of working like 55 hours a week in tech. Maybe not the greatest decision. And suddenly found it very rewarding. Just something, feeling very appreciated when I didn't necessarily always feel appreciated at my job. It was way less stressful than my job, and it felt very gratifying to just make a thing in Minecraft and have people be like, "That looks really pretty." You're like, "Really? Wow, that's spectacular." Then I had the opportunity to make it a career, and at first I didn't have the financial stability to make that transition fully. It was like, I'm making a little bit of money on this. I've got some savings, but I have an opportunity to try and do this. Let's see what happens. And then it grew to the point that I could make it my full-time job. And so it's also possible while you're streaming over the length of your streaming career that your goals can change. Because for me, it started off as a creative outlet, a way to sort of try and release some of this pent-up frustration I had from a life that wasn't feeling very rewarding, to now it's my job. And I still get the fulfillment out of it. I'm way less stressed than I was working in tech or something like that. But I also realize that, hey, I need to make certain business decisions when I decide on like schedule changes or branding changes or anything there.
Yeah, I think that's a very natural progression. I think many streamers start off as doing it as a hobby, without worrying too much about monetizing it, and find so much satisfaction out of it that they start trying to figure out, well, can I make money off of this? And I think that's a good way to approach things. It's a very like safe way. Like I definitely get very worried if someone quits their job and before streaming a single time, because I think it's important to realize that streaming can be a lot of fun for a lot of people, but it might not be for you. If you've never streamed before, just try it a couple times and see how you feel before making any life-altering decisions based around it.
Yeah.
It might seem a little silly to say, but I've known some people who kind of take that plunge, and for many of them, thankfully, it worked out. But for some, it definitely they get a couple months into it and they realize, oh, I've made a horrible mistake. So yeah, it's fine to go in with a certain set of goals, try things out, and then change your goals later. It will affect a lot of decisions. Like this question that we're asking here of why you're doing it is very fundamental. And so changing your goals will change a lot of your approach.
Yeah.
But you can take those changes slowly over time. It doesn't need to be all done at the same time. And it's still okay to do so. You're not going to find that you're like way behind by doing this. You don't have to go right out of the gate trying to monetize everything, or like do the best possible show the first thing you do. You'll actually find that over your life as a streamer, it actually makes sense to change up your goals or change your approach to things as you gain experience, as you gain viewership. It's actually potentially better for you to start off without worrying about everything and to focus on a small
Totally. Oh
subset
my
of what you're
God.
doing.
Yeah. Pick your battles, right? So let's move on. We have a couple of different topics under why start streaming, and we feel they all tie back to the central idea, which is, again, know what you want to get out of streaming and keep that in mind for every decision you make. So here's another one, which is, who are you as an entertainer? And you can see how this is important to solve by itself, but how it fits into the broader spectrum. And here's some examples. What is your voice as a presenter? Are you doing the ASMR thing? Are you loud? Are you shouting? Are you laughing? Are you chill? Like, what's your vibe? Who are you when you're on camera? And it's totally okay for you just be you, but there's also people who are characters online. And if you want to do the character, figure out who that is, right? Do you have a laugh track? Do you use sound assists? Are you a VTuber? Do you have some type of persona that you're presenting? And that's what's there, and figuring out what that is. And that's going to be very important as well to figuring out what your show is when you start streaming.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've seen the entire gamut. Like there are streamers who are extremely quiet. They're like, it's interesting to me, like people will be like, oh, you shouldn't have silence in your stream. And that yet I'll see streamers who can be quiet for minutes, just like appreciating like the game they're playing or what they're watching. And you can find an audience for basically whatever you wish to do. I think there are more popular styles of entertainment. For sure, that if that's something you care deeply about, might be something to consider. But I think more importantly, it's finding something that you personally enjoy doing.
Yeah. It's got to fit you.
Something that you can maintain for the months and years that you're doing this, because streaming is oftentimes a very long-term project. It's something you'll be doing for years, and you have to be consistent about how you're doing it. So find something that you enjoy. A lot of times, people have told me, oh yeah, like I go to stream and I stream as myself, but turned up to 110, 20, 30%.
Yeah. Take a portion of your personality, right?
Mm-hmm. Like if I'm laughing a little bit louder. If I'm, feeling upset or angry, I get a little bit angrier or a little bit sadder. I just take all of my emotions and try to heighten them so that they convey to my audience.
Well, you're presenting, right? And you want to sell those emotions. I mean, the classic example would be WWE. They're really hamming it up sometimes, but they try and make it very clear what they're trying to convey to their audience. But I think that the important thing to go with that again is making sure it feels right, because you are never going to burn out faster than trying to push something online because you think it's going to get you views if it doesn't fit with who you are as an entertainer. You're gonna hate it, and then you're not gonna want to turn on the camera. You're gonna be like, this doesn't work for me. But maybe an overtop personality does work, but just making sure that is in your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, mentally and both physically, I know people who are like, they start streaming and they're like, oh, I'm going to use this like really unique voice or something. And like, after a couple of weeks of doing that, they're like, my voice is shot.
Yeah,
Like, what have I done? Like, I need to stop doing this. So, this is again, the like, try it out. It's something you're able to change, but you probably don't want to change frequently. And it's worth trying some things and figuring out what fits you well.
I know, at least within my network of people, we're all ourselves, or some version of ourselves. Not necessarily my personality dialed up, but portions of my personality dialed up. But for people who play a character, or maybe VTubers or something like that, do you have any advice specifically to people who are trying to be not them?
You can still mostly be you, but like with a different name and appearance, and maybe some like backstory that applies as much as you want it to, or you can really take it, to the extreme and be like, okay, like I'm going to slightly change my voice and have this elaborate backstory of like this character lives in this area, and like you can still tell stories of your real life, but then like shifted into your
Sure,
character's
yeah.
persona of like, oh, like I live in the underworld. I went to the underworld grocery store and like that sort of thing, right? Like it's really as much as you want out of it. And the like playing a character can be nice for a wide variety of reasons. It can afford you a little bit more privacy, right? Like if you're not putting your face and telling people about exactly what you're doing, it can distance you a bit from your audience, which can be nice. It can help lure people in with a more unique concept. It can be part of the hook of why people come to watch you, is be like, oh, well, like I really like this design, or I really like the story they tell, or how they interact with things. That character can then start informing other aspects of your stream and become kind of a foundation for how you approach your overlays or how you interact with your community. And so again, I think it's something to be considering, where if you're choosing to play a character, why, right? Like
Hmm.
what like
What does it
what
add?
I think it's probably incorrect to view playing yourself as the default, but like as a comparison point, like what parts of the character are going to be different than what you otherwise would have done? And how do you emphasize those aspects in a way that really enhances the experience for both you and your audience?
The final section we have here is, what is your approach? So when you're streaming, how are you approaching streaming? Are you a comedian? Is your goal to make the audience laugh? And so the majority of what you do playing a game, you're trying to find goofs and you're trying to make every situation as funny as funny as possible. Are you really good? Are you like, I don't know, top 20 NA Dota player or something like that? And people will naturally be drawn to watching you play because you're just really good. And in which case, you probably let your performance take a back seat. You as a performer take a back seat to your performance of the game. Are you trying to build community? So for the most part, is it just chatting, and you're trying to, your show is talking to people and creating a space where they want to come and hang out. And again, you can use a game as a medium for that. But when you look at who you are as a performer, your motivation for doing it, and your approach, you can see how important all those pieces are to fitting together for what your stream is, what your broadcast is.
It's really interesting looking at a variety of streams on Twitch, on YouTube. Uh, it If you think about streaming in this way of like, what is your target, you can actually start plucking apart, like you can see visually what a broadcaster is targeting based on how they've laid out their stream. If you care about your game, if you're the top 1% a professional player, you're going to make the game as big as you can
Yeah.
and make everything else as small as possible, and you're really going to focus in on it. If you're caring about your community, you're probably more likely to have more notifications and alerts and interactions where the audience can affect what is happening in the stream. If you care about you as a personality, as an entertainer, maybe you're putting on more of a show, you're going to make yourself a larger visual component of your stream, and you're going to have more like sound effects and other things going on to enhance the experience that you're putting forward. This is again one of those things where there's no right answer. It's up to what you want to do, but you can start to see like, oh, this will then affect all of the other aspects of your
So many
stream.
knock-on parts, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you're getting started, it's very common to look at what other streamers are doing and be like, I want to take I love this overlay. I'm just going to take this overlay exactly without asking yourself, why did the streamer make the decisions they made? So I'm going to take their camera placement. Well, are they a pro at a game and their camera's really small and it's in a location that's straight for there? Maybe that doesn't work for you. Maybe it's funny to say this, but maybe you're shy. And as a streamer, you want your camera to be smaller because you feel uncomfortable if the camera's occupying too much space. You're like, that's too much me. I can't look at this much me on screen. And as such, when you're looking at setting up your screens, when you're looking at the streamers you want to copy, you're probably not going to do a booth that's just you, right? Maybe you shrink it, maybe you make chat present. Whether or not chat is on your screen is a great indicator of how much community interaction, how much community presence you want to have in your show. Because remember, at the end of the day, it's a show that you're putting on. So when you're getting started and you're trying to figure out what you want to do and you're taking inspiration from other streamers, make sure you're evaluating those through the context of the show that you want to put on. Don't just copy it and think that, okay, job's done. My stream's going to look perfect. I copied Choco Taco or, Co Carnage. I love what Co's doing. I'm just going to do exactly that. Well, do you do the same type of show? Maybe it won't work.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're looking for inspiration and looking at what other streamers are doing, it is very important to ask these questions that we've gone over so far of that streamer. What is their approach? What are they doing as an entertainer? Why are they streaming? Do those line up with yours? Because if they don't line up, then trying to take too much inspiration or copy what they're doing is probably not going to work out for what you're wanting to do. There's enough streamers out there. You can probably find many examples of people who line up fairly close with what you want.
Oh, absolutely.
And use them rather than the other big thing is you mentioned like Co Carnage or other large streamers. It's not really super relevant to this part, but I will also mention like the viewership size also it changes your approach in laying out streams and how you approach things. So be wary of that as well.
Do you want to elaborate on that just a little bit?
When you get more and more viewers, the way that you interact with your audience starts changing because you're no longer able to interact with individuals as consistently, right? Like your chat is probably going to start moving too quickly for you to read every message. The sort of like redeems and notifications might have to change so that they're not as overwhelming. Like if you're getting 1,000 subscribers a stream,
you gotta turn the audio cue off, right?
Yeah, right. Like a loud notification that lasts 30 seconds probably isn't viable. Whereas if you have fewer viewers, you want to celebrate every individual and every moment rather than in a larger stream, you're kind of looking at the conglomerate and the aggregate of your audience and more adapting to the tone rather than the individual.
Yeah. You're like, great, I can see 100 people are all spamming the lol emote. I did something funny. Great, we'll move with that energy. You're not like, thank you, Fuji, for laughing at my joke,
Yes. So that's my one warning of if you're taking inspiration from other streamers, you may want to also look at streamers around your same viewership level to ensure that they haven't made changes to optimize for the level of interaction that they're getting that you may not.
Anything else as sort of a closing statement on this? Because remember, the one takeaway is know what you want to get out of streaming and keep that in mind for every decision that you make.
Yeah, I've said it multiple times. There's no right or wrong answer, and the other thing I'll say is you're probably going to get it wrong or not perfectly correct the first time, right? Like you'll sit down, think about it, and then try it out. Take that approach. Do the bare minimum, I think, to do your first stream and just learn from it. It's streaming is something where the barrier to entry these days is fairly low. So please just try something out as quickly as possible and start getting your own experience, and that'll help form a lot more questions for you. And those are questions you can then start asking other streamers, start Googling, come back to our show later and ask them. And
bring your follow-up question, right?
Yeah, you can really, the quicker you start streaming and trying things out, I think the faster you'll learn and find what fits you.
I think to add to that as well, I know partners who've been doing this 2, 3, 4 years who they're reimagining stuff now. They're trying new stuff. You don't have to be stuck on a game. You don't have to be stuck on a look. You don't have to be stuck on a presentation style. Even if you find something that works, awesome, great. But if it ever starts to feel wrong, you can change it too. It's never too late to find what feels right. And you're going to be spending a lot of time online, so make sure you're doing the thing that feels right.
Absolutely.
All right, well, with that, we will wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, make sure you're following Fuji and I on Twitter. You can see our handles on the screen down below. You can also catch the live Q&A over at twitch.tv/Serge Jaeger. Serge, joined by Fuji. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.